Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Conquer everything and compromise nothing. This show brings you real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. If you have never liked small talk and have been on a personal growth journey for a long time, stay tuned as Martine and her guests share empowering stories. Now is the time to own your past and look toward your future with hope. Believe in your dreams, and all that you want to achieve is possible. Transformation Coach Martine helps you accept and love you for you. It's time to listen to your heart and tap into your unlimited potential. You have the answers you need inside. Sometimes you just need the right guide to help allow transformation to happen. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome everyone back to Transformation with Martine. This is where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My show, for those of you who don't know, is every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and my show is about hope. My wish is that everybody that leaves the show on a weekly basis is left with hope and know that you are resilient, and we are, as humans, are resilient. I am proof of that, and my guests are proof of that. So without further ado, I want to welcome back half of my guests today, Bert and Xkizin Wright. Bert's been on here before, and we were talking more about financial stuff. And this time we are talking more about relationships and family. And as Bert had said on the last show, that entrepreneurship isn't for the weak. Neither is marriage. It's hard. It's good, but it's hard. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
For being here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So first off, how did you guys meet? And how did you start to learn? I mean, we're all in personal development and in the work that we do, but how did you guys meet, and how did you start, well, working it out to where your marriage is in good shape?
You want to get started? Go ahead.
So we knew of each other since 2004 because he went to UC Riverside and I was at UC Riverside at that time. So I would see him in events and I knew of him. And then fast forward to, I believe, 4 years later, 2011? 2009.
Yeah.
So at the time, I broke up with an ex, and then we talked via Facebook Messenger at the time. And we were like, hey, we could keep each other company until we find somebody else. So we were keeping each other company, and we found each other instead.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, what I think is also important there, Martin, is that I think we were both at a good space in our lives where we wanted something different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had kind of did some of our own inner self-work.
Mm-hmm.
I know it was called self-work back then. It's called just, I was sick and tired of people I was dating in the past. And I pretty much was like, ask God, like, I'm ready for a different type of person to date. And then since she popped up in my life, and although we know each other for years, I was like, okay, all right, you know, she's kind of cute. I can kind of roll with this.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Did you worry about ruining a friendship? You know, like diving into a relationship? Was that hard?
I don't know. I mean, we were more or less acquaintances than probably super close friends. I think that's probably better to describe it as. Like, we were involved in community, different things, like community organizations. So literally, we would see each other at different community events. And so that was more or less kind of how we knew of each other. You know, so it's always just good social capital. We knew somebody was a good character because they were very engaged in the community. So I think, you know, knowing that I was ready. I think you probably ready too. But
yes, because I was tired of doing the same thing when it came to getting into relationships. So I literally wrote down what I wanted and was like, okay, this time I'm going to do it different, and I'm going to commit and find someone that has those qualities instead of just going blindly into relationships.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we've we've all learned over the years that values plays a huge role.
Yeah. Right.
You know, that is top. And when my mom always used to say it depended on your religion, which that could, if you are religious or spiritual or whichever you are, that can definitely play a huge role too, but your values.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the inner work you got to do yourself, right? We understand that, you're going to almost attract who you are more though than what you are. So I think for anybody listening, I would share that, oftentimes the common denominator of anybody you date is you. So that could be a harsh thing to hear or an empowering thing to hear, depending on where you are, right? So I would share that. Yeah.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
because even piggyback off of that, I even wrote on my list as I was writing my list. I was like, do I have those qualities? Because how can I expect my partner to have those qualities if I don't have them myself? So I was intentional with having those qualities and developing those qualities as I expected my spouse or future partner to have those qualities also.
Yeah, very, very important. So after you guys decide to be together, how do things take off from there? And just in because you are both in personal development. So how did that take off from there? And because you guys have a show that you do to help other couples. So how did you transition into those roles while working on your own marriage and just life and business and entrepreneurship?
So when we first got together, Bert wanted to get into additional ways to make money. So at the time, he joined a company that focused on insurance. So he did that and worked full time while I was working full time too. So at the time, I was supporting him in that because I saw the possibilities. So eventually he went in full time, and then I ended up going into insurance also with them, and we partnered up when it came to life insurance. So he would run appointments, I would run appointments, and then eventually we decided to both go all in full time to be life insurance agents.
Yeah, and so to your question, Martine, how we got into helping to support other marriages as well, because one of our mentors would say, as much as you guys are dedicated to your business, you have to be just dedicated to your marriage as well there too. And so what are you reading or what are you listening to provide some support to your marriage as well there too? So we started reading, I don't remember what book, how we got to the first book, but I do remember that we started saying, hey, how do you, the time we put into our business, are we putting the same time to our marriage? Because yes, entrepreneurship can be trying as an understatement, right? And it's not for the faint of heart. And to be newly married as well, engaged in entrepreneurship probably adds some extra stress as well there too. So we started reading the book once a year on the first of the year. We're like, hey, the first of the year, we're going to find a book, we're going to choose, talk about it. And we just started sharing it on social media, our thought process. And so, we started that 10 years ago and it's got some traction now, but we just realized at some point that we'll spend thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars on other areas of our life. We always say when I spend 20, 30 bucks on a single book, that can impact probably one of the most important relationships in your life, which is your marriage and the person you're married to.
Oh, for sure. That's great that, finding a book that you got to both resonate with it, that it feels good to both of you, and then share and make that deliberate effort. I've been in some book clubs, but I like the fact of, just doing that with your spouse and good conversation pieces. I've got Lisa Nichols' recommendation actually is some of those conversation cards that Eric and I will pull out sometime. And I think that's kind of fun, like questions you wouldn't even think about asking.
And you get to borrow from other people's perspectives, right? It's reading other authors because they may have an experience or perspective, especially when we're so young in our marriage, and I say young, but we're still heading on our 12th year, so I still feel like we're still young, right? But you just never know what to run into with her, right? And I think what we realize about the exercise is being intentional about our marriage. Be intentional, right? Because obviously, at some point the so-called honeymoon mode kind of simmers. I don't say it goes away. I think it kind of simmers, and then you realize that now how do we navigate this space, right? So
and books have really helped to navigate those spaces because there was part of the book we read last year about processing and experiences and allowing your spouse or your partner to go through their process at their own rate. And the medical issues we had last year, if I didn't read that, I probably would have interacted with Bert a different way, than giving him his space to navigate his process, his time, instead of, okay, I'm over it, how come you're not? So I think if it wasn't in that book, I probably would have went about handling it a different way. So the book has been, and the books have been very helpful when it came to our interaction and our marriage.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. What comes to my mind is men always generally, at least, well, I can't say all, but it seems that way. And I've only 3 men in my life, you know, one I was, you know, married to before, first relationship, one I was married to, and then now my second marriage. Men always want to fix things. And sometimes if we've had an argument or whatever, it's like, I think we've talked through it enough, you know, and my husband will say, but termites, it's going to come up again. And it's like, yeah, but how much can we talk about it? So how do you guys feel about that? Like, I just want to let things go after a while. I don't need you to fix it. You know, let's just, yeah. What do you guys think, if that makes any sense?
So for me, because it's similar, because he is a fixer. So I just say, I just want you to listen. I don't need you to fix it. I don't need anything else. I just want you to listen. And even down the line, he would ask, okay, did you want me to listen, or you just want feedback? Or you want feedback?
Yeah.
I'm like, just listen. I don't need feedback.
Yeah.
So really having that communication, line of communication, be open, like just listen, don't fix it. It's all good. So that's what how I've been handling it.
Ditto. Ditto. Like sometimes I'll just ask, is this a listening conversation or is this a fixing conversation? Because it makes it easy for me to know how to show up, right? Because if she's complaining about a scenario, I will get engaged and want to figure out how to protect her. You know what I'm saying? Because I was going to protect their wives from scenarios. But sometimes she's like, I just need to talk about it. Like, okay, and I'll just sit there and be attentive. That's it. So so that it definitely is a learned skill set.
It is for sure. Yeah. And you know, and to piggyback back off that a little bit, like what I was saying though, sometimes it's like, you know, we're going to agree to disagree. Do you guys agree with that? At least I do. It's like, it's not, we can't take this any further.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I agree. Sometimes you just, you know, you said all that you said, and that's where the commitment comes in play, right? You're committed to the marriage more so than trying to be right. You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes people are more committed to try to protect their pride or their ego than they are trying to protect the marriage. And so it may yield a compromise, or it may just yield a white flag. You know what I'm saying? So it varies.
Yeah. I do have a question about this to continue, but we are going to take a break. Before we do, though, where can everybody find the two of you? I know you have some separate and some together. So where can we find you?
So I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Xkizin, my name, Xkizin. That's where you can find me.
And you can find me on Instagram at Get Your Money Right. And you can also find me on LinkedIn at Bert Wright. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. They are the right people to look for. Just had to throw that in. You know, I'm sure you get that 100 times a day, but hey. Yes. We'll be right back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guests today are Bert and Xkizin Wright, and we were talking about relationships today and commitment. And we left off talking about letting go of ego versus the commitment we have made. I think sometimes when we're really in the heat of it, at least my husband and I, we both have tempers, we do. And sometimes it's remembering the commitment we've made and the love that we actually have for each other, instead of being in that space of, oh, I want my point out there. Right. What do you guys do in those moments, if you still get to that like we do? What do you do in those moments? Like, do you have like a remembrance, or is it just like putting the cup or something out there, like I need a timeout, we need to cool off, or what do you guys do?
You want to go first? So I would say we definitely are retreat to our corners and thinkers. You know how we operate. When that said, sometimes on our own shows that we recognize that the vows that we made were not just ceremonial; they were really based in a spirit of commitment. And so I share that because I think for married folks or newly married folks is that we often put more time into the wedding than we do into the marriage, right? And so I said we should be mindful of having a big wedding and a small marriage versus a small wedding and a big marriage. And when I say that, I'm not talking about actual the logistical physical size of a wedding. I'm talking about the mindset, right? It's the mindset for this. But so to your point, what I've learned in our marriage, that just give it a little bit of space. I'm also gonna come back. You know what I'm saying? I just need something to process. And for some folks, you hear this phrase that you should never go to bed angry. To each their own. Everybody's different. I think you decide what works for you and your spouse. But we've learned for us that time, even go to bed quote unquote angry, is okay because you need to process. Yes, I think to your point, depending on who you are and how you show up, what buttons to push when you're angry to really send your spouse over the edge. And once you said the words, you can't take them back. And so you literally can say something that could be truly damaging to your spouse. And now you may have won the battle, but you lost the war, which means you created such a severe issue in your marriage that now, you're trying to re-heal a process. So that's kind of how we've learned to process ourselves. And not only that, this may be something we're going to talk about a little later, Martine, is that I know in my household, in her household, I didn't grow up with parents that just yelled, got really super emotional. When they argued, it was pretty much kept amongst themselves, and I didn't see like it was loud, over the top, argumentative household. So so I just want to share about that.
Yeah, for me, like processing, and I've learned to, as I'm processing, I'm thinking, okay, what am I responsible for? And oftentimes it's a lack of communication. So I've learned to release the stuff that if I didn't communicate, how can I be mad? Because there was, when we first got together, there was a time where I was driving from LA and I called him and was like, hey, I'm driving by where he was. Did he want me to stop by? And they were about to leave. He was about to leave from the location. So he's like, no, go ahead. So in my head, I was like, no, I want you to say, sure, come by, come see me. That's what and then, so I was driving home all upset. And then it gave me then I processed it and was like, okay, I did not communicate what I wanted. Right. So how can I be upset if that didn't happen? So a lot of my process when things happen between us and in our marriage and even in life, I really feel like, okay, what did I do? What could I have done differently? And just take responsibility and verbalize what I am thinking with him, and then moving on.
And I think to that point, as much as I know a lot about her, how she works in a lot of ways, we're still not mind readers, right? And so, and our logic makes sense to us, right? So to an example, in my head, I'm like, well, I'm leaving shortly, so why would you come by where I'm at, right? Because it's making sense. I'm leaving Ozzy at home. So I think to that perspective, what you were saying is that, yeah, she may have wanted me to ask her, but in my head, my logic made sense. I'm leaving, so why would I have you show up, right? And so I think we just view the world differently. We're like, ultimately, we are two different individuals going through life trying to form this union. And it doesn't matter whether you're married 1 year, 10 years, or 100 years, you still can't read somebody's mind at the end of the day. Yes.
Yeah, and that's just it. I kind of laugh at some of the things that my husband and I have fought over. It seems funny now, but it wasn't at the time. Right. And it's just those things of not communicating. I think my coach had said something to me. It was something like, how much can you be mad at him for things you haven't asked for? I remember that. And that has been in my head in most of our disagreements or whatever. We used to have some pretty big fights. We don't anymore because we've come to a place more where we can step back. And it's like, okay, we don't have the same love languages. We don't communicate quite in the same way. And it's like trying to just calm down enough, hear their side, you know, that kind of thing, and just try to at least understand. Because I think to the heart of it, all of us just want to be understood.
Right.
We want to be loved. We want to be heard. And we just have different ways of doing it.
Yeah. We all want to be seen. At your point, I like use this acronym VBS, right? We want to be viewed, we want to be validated, and we want to be seen, right?
Yes.
And so we all want to be made to feel special in how we respond and how we communicate. So I think to your point, and it doesn't matter whether it's a friend, whether it's an employee, whether it's a follower's life, you know what I'm saying, our spouse. We just want to be heard and seen and validated, right? So I think that makes a difference, right? And so that's always, you know, it sounds cliche, but you know, we always hear this in meetings. We always have a big sign over our head saying, "Make me feel special," right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's where we all are in our lives.
Right, for sure, for sure. I just wanted to share, I think it's kind of cool, and I try to remember this, that when we got married, I was on the beach, Half Moon Bay. You know, I'm a California girl too. And the pastor that married us, we had each of us, and I have 3 kids, my husband has 2, and all of us poured some colored sand into this jar, you know, and all of us did it. So it was like, you know, you can't break something that's mixed like that. You can't divvy it up. And I try to remember that when we're in those modes. It's like, hey, there's so much more than this argument here, you know, more, so much more to us and what we blended together.
Yep,
so,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Part of that.
Yeah. So much more to that. So much more to that. I think to your point, you know, realize that what are you committed to? You know, I said before, I think we said earlier, is like, are you committed more to being right, or are you more committed to the marriage?
Right.
And that could be sometimes. You need a reminder of that, right? You know what I'm saying? You need a reminder of that I'm committed to marriage. For the tough times, the good times, bad times, you know, the funny times, all of that, right? So I'm committed. And so we talk about how, you know, it's not always convenient to be committed. It's because we're humans, we're emotional, right? So sometimes we want to be more right than committed.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And when the whole thing is over, you just kind of look back anyway. It's like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't want to give this up. You know, I might be mad at you right now, but I don't want to give this up.
Yes.
You know, not for something that, you know, because most things can be worked through. You know, and if you both are committed, that's something I learned the second time around here. It's like you both have to be 100% committed, or it isn't.
And do you like the person? Like, I really do like my wife, you know what I'm saying? And I think, you know, we hear the phrase, you can fall in and out of love, but I think like is just a different emotion. But like, you hang on and it's hard to put it really into words, but really when you like somebody and you really enjoy the company, like, you don't want to ruin that, you know what I'm saying? And so that to me is always first and foremost, like, we really do like each other, you know, and enjoy each other's company. And so, and even so, when you know somebody's, even when your spouse may get on last nerve, you're like, I really don't want to end this. You know, I really do like this person. Just right at this current time, we're just having a moment. Like I say, we're having a moment.
Yes.
Because we are human.
Even with the moments, he is the best partner that I've ever had. So me knowing that and remembering, I might feel some type of way with the moments, but hey, I eventually get past them.
Yes. Oh, for sure. And just giving ourselves that time. And, you know, it's like sometimes, I mean, I get in a mode of, I want to solve this now, but he's not ready. And I have to know that, okay, I got to step back. And that's okay. And then when we do come back together, I'm in a better place too, even though I wanted to just handle it. You know, it's good to just take that time and step back. So before we take another break, what is just one thing that you would say to someone who came to you, perhaps gave you an idea for one of your talks or whatever? What would you say to you that was just struggling, like not any major thing has happened, but just really in a place like, gosh, I'm not sure what to do right now?
You talk about in their marriage or just
in your marriage, just like, gosh, I'm just really like, lately we've been having a really hard time, so much is going on, you know, because we're always in these very stressful times. My husband works a lot, And for a while, he was gone for 2 months. That was really challenging for us. And what do you do when those kind of defeated feelings come in? You know, like, gosh, what do we do now? How are we going to solve this? How are we going to get this through this?
I would say a couple of things for the sake of time. One is I would almost write a letter to yourself as to why you married your spouse. Remember what attracted you to them. Sometimes we meet, and then a wonderful exercise I heard shared is list the wonderful qualities about your marriage and or your spouse. So I think it's so easy to get in a rut of what's not working, but what is working, and what are you grateful for? Maybe start there. I would start there with her. Yeah.
And then I would say having those vulnerable conversations and being open with your partner about what's going on, what you're experiencing, because like we said previously, they can't read your mind. And and then with the problem solving, if you guys aren't coming to a middle ground, it's okay to seek out help. It's okay to seek out a therapist or a relationship coach that can help process or ask other questions that you guys might not have thought of, to help come to a solution or problem solve the issue and overcome where you are currently at.
That's good. That's very good. Always remembering, you know, just like all of us really should start the day with gratitude, whether it's for our relationships or just everything, just having a body that got up that morning, woke up this morning, and you can go outside for a walk and breathe the air. Right. Gratitude is big. Okay, so we will be right back, everyone, in just a few, to talk more about relationships and how to make them better. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guests today are Bert and Xkizin Wright, and we're talking about relationships and how they are not always convenient. But we are committed. We're committed. Commitment is not always convenient. So we were talking a little bit on break about a few different things. And one of the things we were talking about was therapy in relationships. And I have, you know, being a coach is, you know, I think that coaching is very necessary. Therapy is very necessary depending upon the different times in your life. And a lot of times getting mental health, whether it's coaching, therapy, whatever, is looked down on, and it's a good thing. We need it. We are emotional beings, and therapy, I believe, is very good in any marriage, regardless of where you're at in it. So, what do you two think about therapy and the benefits or coaching and the benefits in your marriage?
Well, I'm married to a therapist.
So
yes.
I'm for therapy.
That's yes.
So I would say
I'm her best client.
Yes, he is.
Yes. No co-pays, no co-insurance, all of that. Takes all type of insurances, doesn't matter. I'm her best client.
There you go. Although that might be kind of like do you want to coach your husband? Do you want to give him therapy often? You know,
no.
Or like, because I have to take off my hat sometimes.
Therapy often.
He doesn't. She doesn't.
I don't do therapy.
And we're very clear about that. Like, I don't want, because she does therapy at work all day. So
yes.
Yeah.
But no, it's more or less two spouses having a conversation more than anything else. So,
and me bring my experience as a therapist sometimes in the conversation.
Yeah.
So I would say that way, but no, I don't. No.
So you take off your hat.
Right.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, as a therapist, I really, because last year we went through medical issues as we decided to get a hysterectomy. So before even coming to that conclusion or that decision, I sought out therapy. I sought out therapy because I was like, okay, one, I wasn't sure about the decision myself. And I wanted to see, okay, if there was something I missed or other conversations or things I should process before making a decision that's basically life-changing and irreversible. So I was like, okay, yeah, I could have got it after and to process how I felt about it. But I was like, I wanted to be proactive when it came to this decision and how I operate within this process. So I'm all for proactive therapy because life happens. There's different phases in everyone's life, and it's important to highlight the good things while we're more in a calm state, relaxed state, rather than a heightened state. Because when if it's because we are on the verge of divorce or arguing or something really traumatic happened, it just takes a little bit more work. It's not impossible, but a little bit more work to get to the balance or say ground zero from that experience. But if throughout time, even going just as checking for maintenance and building those skills,
yes,
reduces the chance of really having a dip in your relationship or even yourself.
Yeah, you know, so let me take that back. Our decision, and I say that for her phrase now. You know, I think at that time, you know, it was part of her decision to have a hysterectomy. Now I can embrace this our decision to have a hysterectomy because obviously it's going to impact both of us, right? And so, you know, unfortunately, I didn't go to therapy. Well, no, first of all, I didn't go to therapy prior to her having her surgery. I'm now in the process of looking for a therapist because I realized I needed my own safe space to process that medical journey in many ways. Because obviously now, given that that decision meant that we were going to have kids, at least biologically anymore, was pretty dramatic, right? And so I do believe in the value of therapy. I think people just need a safe space to talk. And I agree that your spouse is one of the best safe spaces you could have to have conversations. But even there are things that you may not even want to share with your spouse that they're not attached to. You know what I'm saying? They have no vested interest in the outcome, and having the value of somebody who is paid to provide that safe space for you is important. So whether it's a therapist, whether it's a coach, I am a firm believer in that. And so, you know, prior to the medical situation and other folks, I did have some coaches I can lean on to help me process that journey. And also I've also had some exercises I'm familiar with to help me process the journey as well there too. And so what I would share to couples out there, be proactive. Like there's nothing wrong getting therapy now or getting a relationship coach. Like figure out how you can make it better. Make it strong. Don't wait till the ship is sinking, you know, before you start getting help, right now, while the ship is full steam ahead, there's nothing wrong with tune up here and there, right? And so I'm a firm believer, Martine, of the value of coaching and therapy before the problem comes about.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. How did you two come together in, is it okay to ask? How did you guys come together? I know we've talked a little bit, Bert, but I mean, how did you guys come together in your decision? I know that's a hard one. I know.
So for me, after speaking with a therapist, I was transparent and honest about how I felt about, because it was a struggle before the hysterectomy for me. And I would say from the conversation, and honestly, if you would have said, no, let's try it a little bit longer, I would have. Now, I don't know what had happened, but I would have said, okay, I'll try a little bit longer or do something else, figure out something else to see if we can have biological children. So I feel part of my process to be okay with it was that he was okay with it. Because I would have been like, okay, if he wasn't feeling it, and then I said, okay, it's my body, I'm going to do whatever. I felt that would have put some tension in between us. And I was willing to see, okay, if there is other avenues, explore other avenues and see if that is a possible route of having biological children. But after how understanding Mr. Wright is, and he's seen the suffering in my experience. So how understanding he is, he chose me instead of having children. So I honor him for that, because many people would have chose what they wanted over, regardless of what was going on with the other person. But he wanted to see me better and health wise and not passing out and not going to the emergency room, rather than having a biological child with me.
And I think going back to our topic of commitment not being convenient is so for full disclosure, you know, there was a moment where I was like, I don't know, like, should we still stay together, right? You know, because obviously for a part of my life, having children was something I had desired. And you begin to wonder, but so quick story. So I used to be a former school teacher. She works with kids on a regular basis. And so maybe I'm a little jaded. So I've seen kids from all walks of life. And so I realized that children aren't the end all be all to a marriage, right? Like there are a lot of wonderful things about having kids, and I know a lot of people who are parents or phenomenal parents have phenomenal kids. Our parents were phenomenal as well there too. But for a moment, I had to really step back and ask myself, am I committed more to the marriage and my wife than I am committed to my personal desire to have kids? And what gave me an out was knowing that having kids doesn't have to be biologically based. You know what I'm saying? There are other ways, right, to do that, right? And I had a true heart moment to say, do I love my life right now as it is? And the answer is yes. You know what I'm saying? That there wasn't a sense of loss or a sense of like lack of fulfillment, right? And so that recommitted me to the marriage because I realized it would have been inconvenient to separate. It would have been inconvenient it would have been easy to say, let's go our separate ways. What made it inconvenient was to sit and say yes, despite all the emotional things that were processed at the same time. And I chose to recommit to our marriage, and was like now I'm grateful. Like there's no reason to have to go out there and try to find something else different. Like I don't know if we had separated and we moved our separate ways that I would have found, you know, who I needed in my life partner. So yeah, that's good. No, somebody else might have been crazy, or it could have, you know, might not be a good fit. I don't know.
Most definitely.
You know, we make a lot of assumptions in that process right there too. So I think when we oftentimes, and to your point, something I said earlier, is like I had to be grateful and show gratitude for our marriage. What are the things I really appreciate about our marriage, right? What are the things I love about our marriage? What are the things I love about her? And that made it easier for me to accept the decision and support it.
Yeah. And you know, God has a way. A child will come to you.
Yeah.
If you still want that, you know, I mean, a child will come to you. There's always a way, for sure. Yeah,
but I also like traveling when I want to.
And quiet time and naps during the day.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
What I would say for those parents or individuals who are in the same boat is ask the real questions of those who are parents. What I appreciate and honor are the parents who gave us the truth. They didn't give us romanticized, idealized version of parenting. They all have phenomenal kids. They all love their kids to death. But I think what I appreciate was the honesty, candor they gave us. Said, Bert, we know you'll be phenomenal parents, but also realize there's work involved, and be mindful of that, right? And so don't be dismissive of that, whatever decision you choose to make with our right. So I just share that for any parents who are listening or couples that are going through that same journey. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, that's good. Very good advice. And yeah, parenting is very hard. I didn't think I'd get a chance. I did, and I don't regret it. And I'm grateful for it in absolutely every way. It's hard.
Yeah.
Very hard. Yeah. I think the hardest part is when they get older and the pain that they go through. That I don't think anything tears you up more.
Yeah.
Than the pain of your children. Yeah. So we'll be right back, everyone. Oh, before we do though, where can everybody find you?
You can reach me on Facebook and Instagram at Xkizin, Xkizin.
And you can find me on Instagram at Get Your Money Right. My last name is spelled WRIGHT. And on LinkedIn at Bert Wright.
All right. We'll be back, everyone. And for our next segment, we'll be talking about money and couples. This will be good.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Welcome Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guests today are Bert and Xkizin Wright, and we've been talking about relationships, how marriage is not always, or commitment is not always convenient, and marriage can be difficult. So when we left off, we're going to talk about financials a little bit. And one of the biggest things in relationships, as we were talking about on break, and most of us, there can often be struggles in marriage when it comes to whether we have a family account, whether we have separate accounts. How do we pool our money together? He makes 5 times more than me. How do we work all this out? What advice do you give couples who possibly might be struggling in regards to finances?
Well, for us, we do have separate and together accounts. And when we first got married, I was in a phase, or I had the mindset, the traditional mindset, where the man is providing financially and more than the woman. So, so that's where my mindset was. And then because we got into entrepreneurships, we went full time as life insurance agents. Our funds dwindled greatly. So because of that, it caused me to have a lot of stress, and even me feeling some type of way. And I drew away, and I really wasn't really there. And as I processed it, and how I said before, the reflecting, doing okay, what am I in control of? Because I'm not in control of his feelings, his behavior, his actions. I'm in control of who I am. So I was like, okay, I'm tired of this feeling. So what can I do? So that's when I decided to change that. And instead of, I'm expecting him to take care of us financially, okay, what can I do to help with my emotions by helping reduce the stress I have towards financial obligations? So I started to learn that this is a partnership. Instead of him taking care of me and I'm taking care of the house, we're in a partnership to take care of each other in this life and on this journey. So after I went back to work, decided what avenue I wanted to go into, and figured out, okay, if I'm going to take my own emotions and actions into my own hands. So that helped me to really start reconnecting to Bert and reconnecting to our relationship by taking responsibility for my part and what I can do, because I'm an able-bodied, I can work. So I took on that responsibility, and that helped, I feel, with me reconnecting and being able to move on.
And so my take on it is before you get married, best as you can, ideally, is to help identify each other's money blueprint, right? Some may be a big saver, some may be a big spender. If you can figure that out before you get married, do you have an understanding what you have to work with the day you say I do, right? So oftentimes I think we assume, like, the questions you need to ask before you get married could be a whole other concept in itself, right? But I think knowing each other's money habits is helpful. With that being said, when you actually are now officially married, what does that mean for you guys? How is money viewed now as a married couple? Like for us, we have multiple accounts. We have a household account, I have a personal account, she has a personal account. We have business accounts as well there too. So for us, it just makes sense. For others, they put everything in one big pot and they determine, what goes from there, right? So if you see your marriage almost as a mini business entrepreneurial enterprise, and that you and your spouse are CEOs or co-CEOs, or maybe somebody's a CEO, somebody's the CFO. Maybe one spouse is really good with the money, and one's better at setting the vision with her, right? So you determine who's better, right? So maybe who that is. It makes it easier to understand how to navigate the money conversation, right? If you guys are trying to buy a house or pay down debt or whatever that it could be, there's value in having that conversation up front. And so hopefully minimizing arguments for the future. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'll say that.
And also being flexible with expectations, because not allowing the society or social or even friends to dictate, okay, this is how you should do it, this is how you should operate in your marriage. Really having the discussion, and whatever fits you guys, and that's okay. So really disconnecting from that, because if I would have been holding on to the whole society expectations and this is how I saw a relationship should be, it would really cause more friction in our relationship rather than flexibility. So really really disconnecting if that's the case, or reflecting, okay, why is that so important when if you said yes to the person and you're in a committed relationship, being flexible about how can we work together instead of against each other.
And then the one last thing I'll share about that is the value of having a community-minded or marriage-minded community around you that supports and endorse the survival and success of your marriage. And that may not include your family. You know what I'm saying? And so get around people who really support and endorse your marriage, because then that will help encourage the possibility of great success and will speak life into your marriage, whatever it is you're going through, because that's going to be important as well there too.
Yes, I so agree with that. You know, who we surround ourselves with, right? That's in all parts of life, like who's going to uplift us, who's going to support us. And you don't want to hang out with people that don't believe in marriage, especially to give you advice on your marriage or, you know, whatever. That's not who you want to go to. And, you know, it's really interesting what you were saying, Xkizin, a little bit ago, because I was raised by a, you know, stay-at-home mom and, you know, dad that went to work and all that. And my dad will still say things, especially me being an entrepreneur, you know, he might feel differently. And he probably did when I went to, you know, to the corporate job I used to have, paralegal and all that. But now being an entrepreneur since 2014, my dad will just be like, well, good thing you have a husband that has a good job, because what would you be doing? You know, kind of just this flippant kind of thing, but that's how he believes, you know, the man's supposed to take care of the woman, you know, and that's just the way it is. So I know that can still factor in no matter what age you are, depending upon what your parents believe and how things are. Yeah. So you came to so you were raised, Xkizin, you know, thinking that you should, you know, take care of the house, and he takes care of work. And then you took charge of your feelings and decided to, you know, hey, you know, I can contribute, I'm able-bodied and all that. Was that really like a big mindset shift? Yes. Out of your parents' thinking or however you got the thinking? Yeah.
Well, it was more of what I observed, because my mom was a stay-at-home mom for a period of time. And then I want to say when we actually got to high school, she went back to work. But I wouldn't say it wasn't drilled in. It was just what we observed. That's how we think it should be. So that's how I thought about it. And then, because that's how I thought about it. And then repeating experiences where things would not happen that I thought should happen. I was like, okay, if I'm not doing something, how can I be mad or have these expectations if I'm not communicating, if I'm not doing things? So I think that was the part of the shift too, because it even shifted before we even got married. The whole me taking responsibility for my feelings and my actions and stuff, because I cannot expect him to read my mind or do things if I don't communicate it clearly. Right. So I think that's what part of it was previous, and that helped. And plus, I just got tired of feeling depressed and sad and not doing anything. I just got tired of it.
Right. Yeah. When we start, taking charge of our whole mindset, you know, everything starts to shift anyway. You know, we're in charge of our day and our feelings and all that. So we only have a minute left. So where can everybody find you again? You know, real quick, and then just what would you just impart on our guest for the last little bit here? Last words of wisdom.
So you can find me again, Instagram and Facebook at Xkizin, Xkizin. And I would say, remember, commitment is not convenient at times, and being flexible and really not rigid when it comes to relationship and communication, being open and be willing to be vulnerable with your partner. And if you feel you can't, really reevaluating why, or and if you aren't in a relationship yet and you're considering the person, but you have to go somewhere else to feel heard or get feedback, really do some inner work and inner reflection of like, okay, if you do commit and say I do, but you really don't open up to the person, is that the type of relationship you want? So really be open and take responsibility for your own emotions, your own behaviors, and your own actions.
Yeah, beautiful.
So you can find me on Instagram at Get Your Money Right and on LinkedIn at Bert Wright. My tip for those listening in would be to be committed to the journey and be committed to the possibilities of the joy, what it could bring to you. I will share that.
Yeah.
I would say that.
Marriage is a wonderful thing, especially when we can just, realize that we are two different people, and just being men and women as it is, the one book, I can't remember the name of, the rose colored glasses and the blue hearing aids or something. I can't remember the name of that, but we're just different, So yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you so much, both of you, Bert and Xkizin, for being here and sharing your wisdom. It was my honor and privilege to spend time with you. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And I hope to see you back next week, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, every Friday. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Transformation with Martine, real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. Listen or watch live every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com as Martine and her guests have deep, meaningful conversations, sharing empowering stories. Step into your passions and lead with your heart. If you are ready to accept and love you for you, visit martineemmons.com and start allowing transformation to happen today.